I was being beat up by some thugs in an alleyway behind a McDonald's when I suddenly had a crazy idea. What if I tried getting the rights to a wallpaper bundled with Windows XP? Now I know what you're thinking.
But how are you gonna get the rights if Microsoft owns the image?
First of all, don't ever fucking question my judgment again. Second of all, don't you worry, sweet summer child, I have a devious little plan. For context, this handsome young man is called Charles O'Rear, and he's the photographer of Windows XP's default wallpaper Bliss. But he actually didn't take this photo for Microsoft, no, he originally sold it on a photo licensing platform called Corbis. And as it turns out, Corbis happened to be owned by Big Ol' Bill, so when the scallywags over at Microsoft needed a background image for their fresh new operating system, they decided to just buy the exclusive rights to a bunch of images on Corbis. They ended up picking not one, but two photos Charles had made, one of which was Red Moon Desert, which was supposed to be the default wallpaper for Windows XP until people complained it looked too much like someone's ass. Fast forward many years, I was flying behind my epic gaming rig while yahooing a little bit about this topic, when I somehow came across a photo on Getty Images credited to Mr. Charles. So, out of curiosity, I clicked this Getty Images profile link and started scrolling a little until I came across this. A sunrise and sunset version of Red Moon Desert. Apparently, even though Microsoft cared enough to restrict anyone else from buying the license to these photos, they didn't care about people buying photos that were made in the same place by the same man. And when Corbis vanished, they sold the entire collection to Getty Images, which still sells all of Charles's collection to this day. So what if I just bought the license to these photos and photoshopped it into a nearly identical looking nighttime version so that I can officially and legally own a Windows XP wallpaper? Kind of, because there's some legal technicalities that state I don't actually own the image, but you get the spirit. I bought the rights. As you may have noticed, I bought the sunset version rather than the sunrise version. Why? Because, well, it's fucking obvious, Sherlock. The hill in the sunrise version is in a completely different position, and so is the sun. In fact, the sunset and night version are so similar that it's only really a matter of moving things around a little bit, replacing the sky, and polishing the remains before we have a pretty spot-on clone of the image we're trying to make. So, with that being said, grab your tote bags, bitches. We're going shopping. Or, well, I guess, Affinity-ing. Or something like that. I don't. Firstly, I had to align the hill, which I did by scaling the reference image over the sunset version before putting the sunset version within the bounds of the reference image. This meant that the night version had to fit mostly inside of the sunset version because I'd have to add non-existent pieces of hill for all the space it couldn't make up, and that's annoying. Yeah, okay, I feel like that fits quite well. I don't think anyone will actually notice if it overshoots here a little bit like it does here. Like you see that the hill kind of extends here, but we kind of need to extend this little bit at the bottom by kind of fading the sand into the empty space right over here. Because as you can see, this right here is missing. This looks pretty convincing, I think. Recreating the sky actually wasn't as hard as I expected, because lucky for us, the sky already looks like a gradient. I guess we only have Arceus to thank for making the heavens, making the earth, and making this process easier for me. To be clear, it isn't a completely linear gradient, I had to add some blobs here and there, but even then I'm pretty good at recreating gradients. One time I even recreated the original Xbox logo consisting of just shapes and gradients. Yes, I have autism. Boop, 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 boop. Okay, yeah, I think that looks good enough. All that's left to do is to steal the moon. Now this was the hardest part of all because I couldn't just take a random moon and slap it onto the image. No, I had to manually make the moon match the colors and lighting of the reference moon, which is easier said than done. First of all, there are kind of two parts of the moon, those being the surface itself and the darker spots on top of it, and second of all, for some reason my brain just refused to make myself match it properly, because to me, this looks yellowish, but when I try picking the color of the moon, it's actually kind of reddish. Oh right, because the photo is called Red Moon Desert. Got it. Yeah. After hitting my head up against the wall over and over and over and over again, I stumbled the way back to my computer and went on to the next step, the darker spots. I couldn't simply adjust the colors to make the darker spots match, because any adjustments I made would also apply to the lighter parts, which would make the entire thing look inaccurate again. So, I somehow had to take out the darker spots as a separate layer and adjust the color of that independently. First I tried doing this weird thing that makes the dark spots completely black in order to make it easier to take out of the image, but I couldn't really do much with this because it's, well, completely black. So what I ended up doing was using this green screen-esque color picker thingamajig tool that allowed me to make a selection in an image based on the color and just rip it out that way, which actually worked. Alas, after tweaking the colors of the moon a bit and changing the color of the hill from red to orange, the image was ready. Grab your popcorn, ladies and gentlemen. It's time for the big reveal. Cool, right? Yeah, it's not perfect, the moon is still a little too dark, the lighting is a little different, but, and hear me out here, that's actually a good thing. Because now, Microsoft can't complain whenever it gets used by me, since it's obvious enough that you can point out the differences when they're side by side, but it's not obvious enough that you'd be able to tell on its own. And trust me, I live for pissing companies off, so you know what? Fuck you, Microsoft. Take your shallow fucking copyrights and get out of here, cause I'm gonna put this image on every fucking t-shirt I can find, so that I can make as much fucking money from this fucking image as I fucking want. I think we should have a little conversation about income inequality. Photo on Getty Images credited